In a vast expanse of a galaxy torn by endless conflicts, the Phalai Dominion ruled with an iron fist from their capital world, Varix's Prime. Their obsidian palace loomed against crimson skies, a testament to an empire built on conquest and unwavering strength. Princess Lyris Vorner stood before the vast throne room, her pale blue skin marking her as royal blood, though her gentle features and questioning eyes set her apart from the hardened warriors of her lineage. King Rael Vorner, her father, sat upon his black stone throne, his dark blue skin rippling with barely contained rage. His generals stood in formation, their scarred bodies adorned with trophies from countless battles. Today marked the day of reckoning for his disappointing daughter. "You disgrace the Vorner name," the king's voice echoed through the chamber. "In all your cycles, you have shown nothing but weakness. Your compassion is a liability, your hesitation in battle an embarrassment." The assembled court watched in silence as he continued. "You question the necessity of conquest, doubt the glory of war. You are unfit to bear the crown of Phalai." Lyris maintained her composure despite the humiliation, though her heart raced beneath her ceremonial armor. She had always been different from her warrior kin, preferring to study diplomatic solutions over military might, questioning the necessity of their constant expansion. "I hereby renounce your claim to any royal privilege," King Rael declared. "You shall be given as a gift to Elias Rain, the human mercenary who serves in our ranks. Perhaps among lesser beings, you will find your place." A murmur rippled through the court. Elias Rain, a battle-hardened human soldier with sun-weathered skin and multiple scars, stood at the edge of the room. His contract with the Phalai military alliance had just taken an unexpected turn. He remained expressionless, knowing that refusing the king's gift would cost him everything: his position, his pay, possibly his life. Lyris felt the weight of the moment. Cast aside by her own father, reduced to property, she nonetheless held her head high. This wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of something she couldn't yet comprehend. Days later, Lyris found herself aboard a transport ship bound for Vascara, a harsh frontier world where Elias commanded a military outpost. The journey was spent in silence, neither Elias nor Lyris knowing how to address their new reality. When they arrived, Lyris experienced her first taste of true hardship. Vascara's surface was a nightmare of shifting dunes and violent sandstorms. The outpost emerged from the haze, a collection of reinforced structures clinging to rocky outcroppings. The planet's twin suns beat down mercilessly during the day, while its twin moons cast an eerie glow over freezing nights. "This isn't a palace," Elias said curtly as they disembarked. "Everyone works, everyone fights. You'll need to adapt, or you won't survive." The other soldiers watched with curiosity and disdain as Lyris struggled with her first tasks. Hauling equipment, digging defensive positions, maintaining weapons. Every action left her muscles screaming in protest. Her royal upbringing had prepared her for none of this. During her first sandstorm, Lyris truly understood the meaning of helplessness. The howling winds threatened to scour flesh from bone. She clung to supply crates in a makeshift shelter, terrified as the storm raged for hours. When it finally passed, she found her sleeping quarters, a small corner of the supply room, far removed from the royal chambers she'd known. The other soldiers continued to mock her. "Princess plays soldier," they whispered. But Lyris had inherited more than just royal blood. Somewhere deep within her, a flame of determination began to kindle. She refused to let them see her cry, refused to complain about the hardships. Elias watched this transformation with growing interest. Despite his gruff exterior, he recognized potential when he saw it. One evening, after a particularly brutal day of training exercises, he approached her. "Learn to use these, or die," he said bluntly, presenting her with a combat knife and a small plasma pistol. "The frontier doesn't care about your gentle nature." Lyris gripped the weapons with trembling hands. She had never held instruments designed for taking lives. Elias began teaching her basic combat techniques, how to hold a blade, how to aim, how to control her breathing during combat. Her first shots went wide. Her form was clumsy, but she persisted. Weeks passed, marked by incremental improvements. Lyris learned to anticipate the sandstorms, to read the subtle shifts in the wind that preceded them. She mastered the art of efficient movement across the unstable dunes. Her hands, once soft from palace life, developed calluses. Her body, previously untested, began to harden with muscle. The other soldiers still questioned her presence, but now some observed her progress. With grudging respect, she volunteered for the most challenging tasks, approaching each with grim determination. When supplies needed to be carried through treacherous terrain, Lyris was first to step forward. When weapons needed maintenance, she learned to disassemble and reassemble them with practiced efficiency. During quiet moments, Elias and Lyris shared stories of their pasts. He spoke of lost comrades, of battles that haunted his dreams. She revealed her frustration with the Falai way of constant conquest, her desire to find another path. Neither acknowledged the growing bond between them, but it strengthened nonetheless. 3 months into her exile, the outpost faced its first major threat. A raiding party of Euros remnants, a hostile species with insectoid features and razor-sharp appendages, struck at dawn. The attack caught them unprepared, the defenders scrambling to their positions. Lyris found herself in the midst of combat, adrenaline surging through her system. An Euro warrior, its crystalline armor glinting in the twin suns, charged at a fallen soldier. Without thinking, Lyris raised her plasma pistol and fired. The shot struck true, dropping the attacker. She rushed to the wounded soldier, a gruff veteran who had been among her harshest critics. "Can you move?" she asked, helping him recover. He nodded, blood trickling from a gash on his arm. "You're faster than you look, princess." The battle raged for hours. Lyris fought alongside soldiers who had once scorned her, proving herself in the crucible of combat. By the time the raiders retreated, she had accumulated her own wounds, burns from plasma fire, cuts from shrapnel. But she had also earned something far more valuable, the beginning of respect. As the wounded were tended to, news of the attack and Lyris's performance began to spread beyond Vascara. Information traveled fast in the Falai Dominion, especially when it concerned royalty. The king's counselors whispered among themselves. Perhaps the useless princess wasn't so useless after all. Over the following months, Lyris's training intensified. Elias, impressed by her natural abilities and fierce determination, pushed her harder. They practiced hand-to-hand combat in the harsh gravity of Vascara's larger moon. She learned tactics, strategy, and leadership. Most importantly, she began to understand herself. Power doesn't come from cruelty, she realized aloud during one training session. It comes from protecting what matters. Elias nodded approvingly. Now you're beginning to understand. The outpost faced numerous smaller engagements. Each time, Lyris's performance improved. She developed a reputation for protecting her squad mates, leading from the front, and making decisions that balanced aggression with compassion. Some Falai soldiers still grumbled about her methods, claiming she was too soft, but victory spoke louder than prejudice. 6 months after her exile, the outpost received an urgent transmission. Outpost Gamma, a critical border position, had lost contact with command. The entire sector was at risk of falling to Euro's expansion if the position wasn't secured. Elias was pinned down by another engagement, leaving Lyris as the senior commander available. The moment she had been training for had arrived. She assembled a squad of 20 soldiers, a mix of Falai warriors and human mercenaries. Many questioned her authority, but desperate times demanded desperate measures. "I know I'm not the commander you expected," Lyris addressed her squad. "I know some of you think I don't belong here, but today, lives depend on us. I need each of you at your best." She paused, meeting their eyes. "I promise I won't ask anything of you that I wouldn't do myself." The journey to Outpost Gamma tested every skill she had acquired. They traversed through Euro's territory using stealth and careful timing. When they encountered enemy patrols, Lyris demonstrated the combat prowess she had developed, taking down sentries with calculated efficiency. Approaching the outpost, they discovered it surrounded by a significant Euros force. The defenders inside were down to their last reserves, barely holding defensive positions. Lyris analyzed the situation rapidly, drawing on both her tactical training and an intuition she never knew she possessed. "We split into 3 groups," she ordered. "Alpha Team creates a diversion at the main gate. Beta Team infiltrates through the ventilation system. Gamma Team, that's us, hits them from the rear when they redirect their forces." The plan carried substantial risk, but surprise remained their greatest advantage. As the attack commenced, Lyris led Gamma Team through treacherous terrain, circling the enemy position. The sounds of battle intensified as Alpha Team engaged the Euros' main force. When the moment came, Lyris gave the signal. Her team emerged from concealment, weapons blazing. She fought with a combination of practiced technique and raw determination, every movement purposeful. A particularly large Euros commander, its exoskeleton reinforced with battle-scarred plates, targeted her directly. They clashed in close combat. The creature's strength was immense, but Lyris used her training to exploit its weaknesses. She remembered Elias's teachings. Fight smart, not just strong. She dodged its powerful strikes, using the environment to her advantage. Finally, she found an opening, driving her combat knife into a vulnerable joint in its armor. The commander fell, and with it, the Euros' morale broke. The battle ended with victory for the Phalai forces, but at significant cost. Several of Lyris's soldiers lay wounded or dead. She moved among them, checking on the injured, offering words of comfort. The surviving defenders from Outpost Gamma emerged, shocked to see a Phalai princess fighting alongside mercenaries. Word of the victory spread like wildfire through military channels. The princess who had been cast aside had accomplished what seasoned generals hesitated to attempt. In the Phalai capital, King Rael Vorner received the reports with a mixture of disbelief and begrudging acknowledgement. Back at the base outpost, Lyris tended to her wounded comrades. Her hands, once reserved for formal ceremonies, now cleaned wounds and administered medical aid. The gruff veteran she had saved during the first attack, now missing an arm but alive, spoke words that echoed through the ranks. "She's no longer the useless princess. She's one of us." Elias returned to find his outpost defending itself, not just with weapons, but with renewed purpose. He found Lyris in the command center, studying tactical reports and coordinating defensive improvements. She looked up at his approach, exhaustion etched into her features, but a new confidence evident in her bearing. "You've changed," he observed. "We both have," she replied. "The frontier changes everyone who survives it." 3 months after the Outpost Gamma victory, a golden shuttle bearing the royal crest of the Phalai Dominion descended through Vaskera's atmosphere. King Rael Vorner had summoned his daughter home. The summons created tension throughout the outpost. Soldiers who had fought alongside Lyris wondered if her royal blood would reassert itself. Would she abandon them for the comfort of the palace? Would she accept a position of power bought with their sacrifices? Lyris stood in her simple combat attire as the royal delegation arrived. In contrast to her austere clothing, the emissaries wore elaborate ceremonial armor, their skin artificially darkened to royal blue standards. They regarded her weathered appearance with barely concealed disdain. "Princess Lyris Vorner," the lead emissary announced formally. "Your father, His Magnificence King Rael Vorner, commands your presence. The Dominion requires your unique talents." The journey back to Varix's prime felt surreal. The capital city hadn't changed, but Lyris had. The towering spires that once seemed magnificent now appeared ostentatious. The military parades that once inspired fear now struck her as hollow displays. In the throne room, King Rael Vorner studied his daughter with narrowed eyes. She no longer cowered before his presence. Her posture remained respectful but unbowed, her gaze steady. "You have proven adequate," he began, the word carrying the weight of significant concession. "Your actions at Outpost Gamma demonstrated tactical ability. Perhaps your methods, while unorthodox, have merit. The court watched in fascination. The king, who had publicly denounced his daughter, now faced her as a proven warrior. "I offer you a position," he continued. "Command of the 5th Legion. You will continue serving the Dominion, expanding our territory, securing our future." Lyris remained silent for a long moment. The offer represented everything she had been denied: power, position, vindication. It also embodied everything she had learned to question about Falai society. "I appreciate the offer, Father," she responded carefully. "But I've learned that true strength comes not from conquest alone, but from protecting what and who matters. The frontier has taught me that there are different ways to serve." The king's expression darkened. "You refuse the crown you once desired." "I accept that our empire needs strength," Lyris replied, choosing her words precisely. "But it also needs wisdom, compassion, and the ability to recognize that not all problems require war as a solution. If you truly value what I've learned, you'll allow me to serve in the way that maximizes both our survival and our honor." The tension in the throne room reached its peak. Generals shifted restlessly, sensing potential conflict. King Rael Vorner had rarely encountered direct challenge to his authority, especially from one he had once dismissed as worthless. "You would presume to teach the king of Falai?" he asked, his voice deceptively calm. "I would serve the Dominion as I've learned to serve best," Lyris answered. "On the frontier, where actions matter more than titles, where survival depends on unity rather than domination." The silence stretched interminably. Finally, King Rael spoke. "Very well. You shall return to your frontier post. But know this, your actions reflect upon the crown. Should you fail, there will be no third chance." Lyris bowed slightly, a gesture of respect rather than submission. "I understand, your magnificence." As she turned to leave, her father's voice stopped her. "Lyris." She paused, looking back. Perhaps there is strength in different forms," he admitted grudgingly. "Do not make me regret this decision." The return journey to Vascara brought unexpected modifications. King Rael, despite his reservations, had authorized additional resources for the frontier defense. Medical supplies, advanced weaponry, and reinforcements accompanied Lyris's shuttle. The king had clearly recognized that his daughter's unconventional methods produced results. When she landed at the outpost, the soldiers greeted her not as a returning princess, but as their commander. Elias stood among them, a rare smile visible beneath his beard. "Quite an entrance," he commented as the new supplies were unloaded. "We earned it," Lyris responded. "All of us." That evening, as the twin suns set over Vascara's endless dunes, Lyris stood with Elias overlooking their outpost. The harsh world that had once seemed like punishment now felt like home. "You could have taken the crown," Elias observed. "Some thrones are worth more than others," she replied. "Here, I found purpose beyond birthright." In the weeks that followed, Lyris implemented changes that revolutionized frontier defense. She established alliances with neutral species who had previously avoided Falai forces. Her reputation for fair dealing attracted valuable intelligence about Euro's movements. She trained other units in her combined approach, tactical excellence balanced with strategic mercy. News of these successes reached not just the Falai court, but other powers in the galaxy. The story of the cast-aside princess who became a warrior without losing her humanity inspired unexpected reactions. Some viewed it as weakness, others as evolution. On a particularly peaceful evening, Lyris received a private communication from an unknown source. The message displayed coordinates and a simple text: "Those who seek balance find allies in unexpected places." She shared the communication with Elias, who recognized the patterns. "This could be from the Terran Diplomatic Corps," he suggested. "Your methods have attracted attention beyond our borders." The frontier continued to demand vigilance. Euro's incursions persisted, though their tactics shifted to accommodate Lyris's unpredictable strategies. Her reputation as the Falai warrior who refused to sacrifice honor for victory spread, creating a new archetype in military circles. 6 months after her return from Varix's Prime, Lyris led her largest operation yet. Multiple outposts faced coordinated Euros attacks. Rather than requesting massive reinforcements, she coordinated a network defense using her established alliances and innovative tactics. The campaign lasted weeks, testing everything she had learned. She balanced aggressive strikes with strategic withdrawals, maintained supply lines through harsh environments, and kept morale high despite mounting casualties. Most revolutionary was her approach to captured Euros warriors. Instead of immediate execution, she initiated diplomatic negotiations. These negotiations, though initially met with resistance from both sides, eventually led to localized truces in several sectors. The concept of battlefield diplomacy, nearly unheard of in Falai military doctrine, demonstrated practical advantages. When reports of these developments reached King Rail, he faced a decision that challenged traditional Falai thinking. His daughter had achieved military success while simultaneously reducing overall conflict, a paradox by Dominion standards. The king's response arrived via official military channels. Continue operations at your discretion. All frontier commanders are to study and implement applicable methodologies. Within the careful, bureaucratic language lay recognition that changed everything. Lyris's approach had gained institutional acceptance, if not yet full endorsement. As seasons passed on Vascara, the outpost evolved into something unique, a frontier fortress that served as both defensive position and diplomatic hub. Allied species established permanent liaison positions. Trade routes that had been blocked by constant warfare gradually reopened. Lyris developed into a leader who inspired not through fear, but through demonstrated competence and genuine concern for those under her command. Soldiers who once mocked her royal nature now sought her mentorship. The distinction between Falai and human. Personnel blurred as shared experience created new bonds. Elias, watching these developments, observed to Lyris during one of their evening discussions, "You've built something here that neither empire anticipated." "We've built it together," she corrected. The frontier demanded evolution or extinction. We chose to evolve. Their partnership had deepened beyond military collaboration. The trust forged in battle created a connection that transcended species barriers. Neither spoke of it directly. Emotions remained dangerous luxuries on the frontier, but both acknowledged it through actions. A year after reclaiming her position, Lyris received another summons to the capital. This time, the message carried different weight. The Dominion Council requests your presence to report on frontier integration methodologies. The council chamber differed from the throne room in its circular design, suggesting equality rather than hierarchy. Representatives from various Falai military branches and select allied species occupied seats around the perimeter. King Rail presided, but the setting implied broader authority. Lyris presented her experiences without embellishment, focusing on practical applications. She demonstrated how understanding enemy motivations decreased total casualties on both sides. She explained how treating conquered or negotiated peoples with measured respect created more stable borders. The council members responded with varying degrees of skepticism and interest. Some generals dismissed her methods as weakness. Others, particularly those responsible for resource allocation, recognized the economic advantages of her approach. War, Lyris concluded her presentation, remains necessary when true threats emerge. But endless conquest consumes resources better used for advancement. The frontier has taught me that true power lies not in dominating others, but in building alliances that multiply our strength. After hours of debate, the council voted on a series of proposals. Lyris waited in an anteroom while they deliberated. Elias, who had accompanied her as her senior advisor, sat nearby. Regardless of their decision, he said quietly, "You've already changed the game." When summoned back, Lyris found the atmosphere charged with significance. King Rail spoke formally. "The council has reached its determination. Frontier Command will be formally recognized as a distinct branch of military operations. You, Lyris Vorner, are hereby appointed as its founding commander." The implications extended beyond mere promotion. Frontier Command would have autonomy, to implement its balanced approach across all border regions. Resources would flow according to its specific needs. Most importantly, the Falai Dominion officially acknowledged that multiple paths to strength existed. This position carries unprecedented responsibility, the king continued. You will answer directly to this council. Failure will impact not just your career, but the fate of our buffer worlds. Lyris accepted with calm professionalism, though internally she recognized the magnitude of what had been achieved. The cast-aside daughter had not only proven her worth, but had influenced the direction of an empire. The return of Vascara marked a transformation. Would have been a single outpost expanded into headquarters for a new military philosophy. Personnel arrived from across the Dominion, eager to learn Lyris's methods or prove their superiority through traditional approaches. She established a training regimen that balanced combat effectiveness with cultural understanding. Officers learned not just tactics, but basic diplomacy. Warriors studied the psychology of their potential enemies. Even veteran commanders found themselves reconsidering long-held assumptions. The original members of her outpost formed the core of this new force. They served as examples, demonstrating that Lyris's methods produced results. The gruff veteran who had lost his arm became her second in command, his prosthetic replacement a testament to both the costs and continuity of their mission. Elias initially remained at Vascara as her primary advisor, but eventually accepted a roaming position, traveling between outposts to implement training protocols. Their relationship evolved into something neither had anticipated, a partnership that transcended their original circumstances. During one of his visits, as they reviewed defensive positions that had become unnecessary due to improved local stability, Elias remarked, "Your father probably didn't expect this when he sent you away." "No," Lyris agreed, gazing across the transformed landscape. "But perhaps he understands now that exile can be a door rather than a prison, if you have the courage to walk through it." The frontier continued to present challenges, but Lyris faced them with growing confidence and capability. Each crisis became a lesson, each victory a foundation for further evolution. She built a legacy not through conquest, but through the radical notion that strength and compassion could coexist. Years after that fateful day in the throne room, Lyris stood once again before her father. This time, she wore the insignia of Frontier Command, surrounded by advisors of multiple species. The throne room hadn't changed, but the relationship between king and daughter had transformed fundamentally. "Your methods have proven more effective than anticipated," King Rail acknowledged. Sectors under Frontier Command show increased stability, reduced conflict, and improved resource utilization. "The frontier teaches practical lessons, Your Magnificence," Lyris responded. "Reality cares nothing for our preconceptions about strength or weakness." The king nodded slowly. "Indeed, continue your work. The Dominion benefits from diverse approaches to power." As Lyris departed the capital for the last time, she carried with her more than official approval. She bore the understanding that identity wasn't fixed by birth or circumstance, but shaped by choices made in the face of challenge. Upon returning to Vascara, she found Elias had arranged a surprise. The entire command staff, human and Falai alike, had gathered to celebrate her success, but more importantly, to honor the community they had built together. To Lyris Vorner, the veteran raised his prosthetic arm in salute, who taught us that the strongest walls are built from mutual respect, not fear. The celebration continued late into the night beneath Vascara's twin moons. Lyris moved among her people, for that's what they had become, sharing stories, addressing concerns, and planning futures that none of them could have imagined during those first harsh days of her exile. As the festivities wound down, she and Elias found themselves alone on the command platform, overlooking the transformed outpost. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "That day in the throne room changed everything for you." Lyris considered the question, watching lights move across the base as night patrols conducted their rounds. "Every path closes off alternatives," she said finally. "But this path, it led me to understand myself in ways comfort never could. I found my purpose not in the crown I was born to wear, but in the one I earned. Elias nodded, understanding implicit in his silence. They stood together as dawn began to lighten the horizon, partners in a mission that continued to defy traditional categorization. In the months and years that followed, the impact of Lyris's transformation rippled through the galaxy. Other empires studied her methods, some implementing similar approaches, others denouncing them as dangerous precedent. The Phalai Dominion found itself navigating novel political terrain, its military power enhanced by strategic diplomacy. Frontier Command continued to expand, its influence growing beyond initial projections. Lyris developed additional protocols, refined techniques, and faced new challenges with the adaptability that had become her trademark. She maintained her connection to the harsh realities of the frontier while influencing policy at the highest levels. The princess who had been deemed useless had become indispensable, not through hereditary privilege, but through proven capability. She had transformed exile into opportunity, weakness into strength, and in doing so, had changed the trajectory of an empire. And in quiet moments, looking across the sands of Vascara or the stars beyond, Lyris sometimes reflected on the strange wisdom of fate. The father who had cast her aside had unknowingly provided exactly what she needed to become who she was meant to be. The frontier, with all its hardships and revelations, had offered her the greatest gift, the chance to discover that worth isn't given. It's earned, step by challenging step, battle by transformative battle. On the frontier where she had found her purpose, Lyris Vorner continued to forge her path, a warrior diplomat whose legacy would inspire generations to reconsider the very nature of strength, leadership, and the infinite possibilities that exist beyond the confines of royal expectation. The twin sons of Vascara rose on another day, another mission, another chapter in a story that had begun with rejection and evolved into revolution. The tale of a useless princess who became the warrior her father could never command, but could only admire from afar. And in that admiration lay the ultimate victory, not over her father, but over the limitations others had placed upon her, and most importantly, over the doubts she had once harbored about herself. Lyris Vorner had come home, not to a palace, but to purpose. And in finding that purpose, she had discovered that sometimes the greatest gifts arrive wrapped in rejection, waiting only for the courage to unwrap them and claim their power.